shout out if anyone has any objections to recording this meeting. So we have a pretty jam-packed agenda for today. Just a reminder, this meeting is 90 minutes based on the acceptance of a cadence proposal from the previous meeting. So today we'll go through the usual business activities. We'll approve the minutes. We'll go through a ballot for comment update. We'll do an AU core testing update and talk about the next Connectathon. We also have a number of change requests to go through. Some of those were change requests in the previous technical design group meeting that we didn't actually get to. And I think we have a new one to go through from Danielle for the FFM level for sex assigned at birth. And Danielle's also going to go through new AUCDI new elements. And we'll give an update to the e-vote that we have for allergy intolerance guidance, which closes today. And we'll kick off with the change requests around the security stuff first with Michael Wilson. So we'll kick into the usual business and we'll go through the approval of the minutes from the previous meeting. And we also have some updates from the fire work group, which have endorsed some FFM1 AU core artifact. And we have some updates from the core working group here, which occurred in this meeting's minutes. So what we might do is we might kick on with, does anyone need more time for the approval for minutes? Are we happy for someone to motion that we approve those minutes?
I'm happy to motion approval of the minutes, Landon.
Thank you very much. Is anyone happy to second that, the approval of the previous technical design group minutes?
I'm happy to approve.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chrissy.
I'm actually not sure how to do the poll. Brett, if you're online, are you able to do that by any chance? Amazing, thank you. Okay, we have we have 35% affirmative at this point, and we have 11 affirmative and we have 21 abstaining. So that is probably enough time. So that motion has passed. I'll end the poll now. I'm hoping that you see the results shortly.
Yep, and can you just read out and confirm those closed numbers? Thanks, Landon.
No problem. So out of 35, we had 13 affirmative, we had 0 negative, and we had 22 abstain. Share the results.
Great, let's move
on. Great. So with regards to the
yeah, okay, yes, sorry. Yeah, I was meant to give this slide. So we're pretty close now. We've just got two issues for applying to AU core. One of those is the vote that's out now. The other one is on allergy intolerance, and we were waiting on the terminology update from NCTS. That's out now, so the pull request will come into AU core. There's a QR code there and a snapshot, because what we've done is we've actually published a snapshot for that 040 preview is there now, that essentially represents the normative results from the ballot reconciliation that's going to go through testing. And so we're not planning another snapshot now until the actual ballot one on the 5th of August. So that's there, that's available. And then we've only got 2 more informative kind of ones to come in, along with any other change requests that we agree today or over the next couple of meetings before we go to ballot. So that's that one. Could you move to the next slide? And on the AU core testing update, just calling out here, we've already had 24 separate product submissions, which was pretty amazing, coming in, going across both like our responders, requesters, and also 5 separate products looking at profile only, which was pretty awesome. That QR code is for the AU core testing Confluence page. There's another QR code coming up if you're interested. Can you go next slide, Landon? Just want to give a little view here on coverage. So we've actually got double digits of going across all the profiles on AU Core. So that's looking pretty good to get some of that evidence on how is search working, how's that data, how is that coming in. I'll just call people's attention to the question mark on AU Core sex assigned at birth, because we're not tracking that individually. We probably should have. And this tracking page is about submissions. So this is people who've indicated that they are interested in testing the following profiles, whether that's read, search, create, update, or just profile only. So we're probably going to come back to you on our next meeting with some of the results. Now we're expecting some of those today from the AU Core testing event, and then start kind of coming back in and reporting those in each of our meetings going forwards. If you go next slide, Landon. And lastly, just want to remind people now about the testing event. So today's Brisbane. So if you're in Brisbane and you haven't made it to today, you've kind of missed out. We've got Sydney and Melbourne still coming. If you're interested in testing AU Core, whether that's at an event or otherwise, can you complete the EOI form? And also there's a couple of people who are online who have indicated their interest, and also for the events. We do need you to get back to Maddie, who's trying to confirm how many people are coming to those events, so we can just make sure we've got, I guess we're not running out of spaces. Next slide, thanks, Landon. And just, I want to call out here, the Connectathon is now open. So we've got our August Connectathon with a work group meeting on the 20th and the Connectathon on the 21st and 22nd. This is in Brisbane. The tickets and everything are out now. So if you go to Eventbrite, you can, and for HL7 Australia, I'm not sure if anyone's available to drop a link in the chat. These are out, so go in and register now, please, if you look like you're going to want to come to one of those days, or all the days, actually. We'll be there. Next slide. Okay, great. That was it for me for updates.
Cool. Thank you very much, Danielle. So these next 2 change requests, Michael Wilson is going to take us through some of the security change requests. So I'm not sure if you want me to, actually, I'll just leave the screen open. Do you want to talk to it, Michael?
Yeah, I'll get you to drive. It's probably easier for the moment. So these couple of change requests were, I brought them up in a Conformance Friday a few weeks ago to go through some of these. This first one is about an inconsistency between our capability statements and the security page we have in the IG. So I don't know, Landon, are you actually able to click on the change request itself? No, the 4608, 46067. Sorry.
Sure. Just one second. Oh, sorry. Yep.
So basically in the capability statements there, it says at the moment that for authentication authorization systems may support smart app launch and smart backend services. When it is not available, basic authentication may be used. So that's inconsistent with what we've now added to the AU Core security and privacy page, which says systems should support smart app launch for client authentication and authorization. So this proposal is to try and fix the inconsistencies. With I think the best place is to have all the security requirements for AU Core in one place on that security and privacy page, rather than trying to duplicate it throughout the IG. So this proposal is to remove the security requirements from both AU Core requester and responder capability statements, and create a new security requirement in both AU Core requester and responder capability statements that says see the security page for AU Core security requirements. So therefore, when we're making changes to security requirements, we'll do it in one place on the security page, and we don't need to go through and update the capability statements or other places in the IG that might duplicate that information. So we can probably jump back to the slide pack, Landon. So yeah, I'd like to motion that we accept this change, which is to remove the security requirements from AU Core requester and responder capability statements for the smart app launch, and create a new generic statement that is to see the security page for security requirements.
Yeah, I'm happy to second that one.
Great. Is there any questions from anyone? I'm actually having trouble seeing hands up at the moment. Heath, you have a question.
Yeah, so there's no intent to have any computable statements in the capability statements.
I don't think that that's necessarily a forever statement. I think specifically for this one, it doesn't exclude us from doing it in the future. But for this particular smart app launch one, that would be the case.
Okay, so currently we have no computable statements in the capability statement. So we're just removing narrative at this point.
Yes.
I don't think we are, Heath. I think what's saying is we've got narrative in two spots and we didn't make them consistent. And this, the reason I'm seconding this is saying we've agreed what those security and privacy requirements are, and we're managing it on that page. So we should be pointing just to that page. That's my understanding of this change request. So it's about consistency and managing the security requirements just on a single page and linking everything to that page.
Yeah, I'm just confirming that we actually don't have anything stated in the computable part of the capability statement.
Which element do you think that's possible
security.
to do in capability statement.security? That sounds like a very interesting change request that we should explore.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, I'm just basically confirming that we haven't got anything there yet. So, which I think is the case off the top of my head.
It is. We don't make use of that element now in AU Core.
Yeah. And it's a bit tricky, so I can't even imagine how we would use that element to state our requirements at the moment. So yes, it might be a change request, but I don't think it's an R1 change request.
Yep, agreed.
Thank you.
Okay, great. We've had someone motion and someone accept that and second it, and no other questions. So we might be able to go for a vote. This one we're probably going to. Oh, okay. We'll use an online poll, or yeah, sure.
And Brett, did you want to either call out or put in the chat what your vote will be?
Yeah, I'll put it in the chat.
Which, just for people online, Brett has been signed in as a co-host, and the co-host is unable to use the voting features. So they'll just have to type in the chat and we can add that to the numbers when they get read out.
Okay, that's probably enough time. So we might end the poll here. Okay, so for that motion, so we had 21 affirmative, we had 0 negative, and we had 16 abstain. And I'll share the results.
Just clarifying, does that
Oh, yeah.
21 include Brett's affirmative?
No, one more. 22.
Apologies, that would be 22.
Yeah.
With Brett's affirmative.
Great. Motion passes. Exciting.
Okay, great.
Next
Go
one.
to the next one, Mike.
So this one was also discussed in that Conformance Friday a few weeks ago, looking at strengthening the transport layer security TLS requirements for AU Core. I might get you to jump to that ticket as well, 46068. It's got the reasoning in there. Okay. So the proposed change is to strengthen the security requirements for TLS, and the changes proposed are that systems shall use TLS version 1.2 or higher for data exchange. The systems should use TLS version 1.3 for data exchange, and systems should use the Australian Cybersecurity Centre TLS configuration guidelines that include recommendations for configuring protocol features and acceptable cipher suites when implementing TLS. So the key reason for this change is if we were silent on it, there's issues with TLS version 1 and 1.1. They're outdated cryptographic algorithms, and they're vulnerable to a number of attacks. Their ciphers are susceptible to exploits, and they can be used for targeted person-in-the-middle attacks. And the key things is TLS 1 and 1.1 no longer have compliance or industry standard support. So it's officially been deprecated, version 1 and 1.1. And the Australian Cybersecurity Centre advice says the immediate discontinuation is recommended for the security risks. As well as this, all modern browsers and platforms no longer support TLS 1 and 1, for example, Chrome and the like. I might just get you to scroll down a bit, Landon. So the benefits of using TLS 1.1, 1.2, and 1.3, it's got enhanced security. It's got strongest cryptographic algorithms. It's supported by all modern browsers and platforms. There's still a couple of vulnerabilities known in 1.2, which is why the advice is to actually follow the Australian cybersecurity guidance if you are using 1.2 on the ciphers to use and the way to configure it to minimize those issues with 1.2. So ideally, we would be using TLS 1.3, which has removed all the outdated vulnerability ciphers, and it makes it easier to configure a secure system using TLS 1.3. So I'll just get you to scroll back up to the top, Landon, race through a lot of that. But essentially the proposed change for the AU Core security is that systems shall use TLS 1.2 or higher. So that's a shall. So that, we don't use TLS 1 or 1.1. And then there's a recommendation that systems should use TLS 1.3. So if you're able to, then you should try and use 1.3. And then there's systems should follow the guidance from the Australian Cybersecurity Centre for that. So there's a lot there. Did go through it in a bit more detail at the Performance Friday a few weeks ago, but I'm happy to answer any questions anyone may have on this now before we go to a motion. Has anyone got any concerns about this guidance? I can't see any hands either, so call out if there's any hands up. No, if there's no questions, I'd like to motion that we accept this proposal. Systems shall use TLS 1.2 or higher. They should use TLS 1.3, and systems should follow the Australian Cybersecurity Centre guidelines.
I'm happy to second, Marvin.
Thank you, Marvin. If there's no further questions, we might go to a vote. I might need to reset this vote potentially.
It should be
Is that correct,
something that
Brett?
says relaunch. Yeah.
Relaunch. There we go. Perfect. Thank you very much. Votes are coming in now. Okay, seems to have stopped ticking over. So I might end the poll and ask Brett if he had a vote one way or the other.
He put +1 in the chat
I'm at +1.
for affirmative, sorry.
Affirmative.
Awesome, thank you very much. In that case, out of 38, we have 29 affirmative, we have 0 negative, and we have 10 abstains. So the motion is passed. Great, thank you very much, Michael.
Cool.
Okay, great. This brings us on to our next change request to do with the comparators for birthday. The suggestion here is that
Can I just jump in? Sorry.
Before we met, yeah.
Oh, go
Heath.
ahead. Heath, you got a question.
Yeah, just reverting back to the security element in the capability statement, there is actually a current description associated there, which is effectively TBD. I'll put it in the chat. I don't know if we can revisit this very briefly, but whether it's a technical correction or whatever, but can we just maybe make the same text in this description as well to refer
Can
to?
we? I would just prefer, like, let's take an action to just confirm that that's what it should be, and then present that back as a proposal to the technical design group next meeting. I mean, I'm happy to quite support that that's what we do. I just think that that should also come with a bit of the education behind what does that element do and how do you use it.
Yep. Okay.
So if we could have that recorded and have that be on, I guess, Heath and me to like come back to the technical design group in our next meeting to present, maybe putting that into the machine processable elements in security description.
Happy with that. Thank you.
Right.
Okay, great.
Actually, if you could stop sharing, Lyndon, I'll start, because I got a few slides and it's probably just easier for me to start driving there.
Okay, if you wanted to do that.
Because otherwise you'll have to click through about 30 slides, I think.
No problem.
All right, that should be. Can I just check? Can you see that screen?
Yes, can see it.
Perfect. Okay, so the change request, this one being the comparators for birth date. This was discussed in a previous technical design group, and I raised this one because I didn't think that these were intended to be shall. That the comparators, and just for here, so AU core search parameter birth date. So that's the support for the birth date search parameter. If you support it, There are requirements currently in AU Core on these comparators. GT is greater than, LE is less than or equal to, LT is less than, and GE is greater than or equal to. So these comparators, and these are currently said shall, as in, if you support the birth date search parameter, AU Core says you shall support searching with the following comparators. And I'd raise this change request to suggest that these I think we should look at this, and maybe they're a may, not a shall. This was discussed in a previous technical design group, and we ran out of time because it was one of the final discussions. The group, so we've held it over. The group that was discussing this seemed to actually be moving to the fact that they thought that this was a should, as in it was quite desirable, but that we weren't confident enough that it is actually a mandatory requirement for systems to make it a shall. So this has come back to this technical design group to discuss on where we want to land on this. As in, for this meeting, will we move it from a shall? And if so, can we confirm that should is still the position we were pretty happy with? Or is that too strong? So I want to open that up to the group and just get those opinions from those people who are on the line now about searching by birth date and those comparators. Although I guess today's a bit of a quiet TDG. No one's putting their hand up.
So this is Marvin here. I think most of our solutions will search for, well, in essence, do an equals on a birth date. I'm trying to think which ones would have a search for greater than or less than and so on.
So what the use cases, okay, that's a good point. The use cases that were discussed were especially in remote and Indigenous communities, that they were required to be able to support that breadth of being able to list across greater than, kind of equal than, whereas in other use cases, you actually had to be precise. Sorry, who was commenting?
Yeah, that's fine. Josh, whichever one.
I'm not sure if you're meant to be talking to the technical design group, if you're just not on mute.
Yeah, Maddie and Tommy's away today. Looks a bit.
I think someone should be on mute and they're not. Okay, great. I'll just go to Dan. Your hand is up.
Yeah, I previously raised that we, in certain systems, have requirements to have exact match on demographics when searching for patients. So I'd be more leaning towards a may.
Thanks, Dan. Brett, your hand was also up.
Yeah, I just had a general actual dates, yeah, so you could just have a year.
You can. Yes. Ish. Well, actually, I don't think you can. That's precision. What does AU Core require? Let me go look. For birth date. Okay, let's pop and have a look at capability statement. We'll go have a look at requester. Let's go down to patient. They're alphabetical order. So we've got patient here. As we go and look at birth date here, you have to provide a value precise to the day offset. And I think that was one of the topics in our previous technical design group, that from an implementation perspective, I don't know if Millie's on the line. I think Millie provided some commentary on this for us, that was found to be much easier to implement, to do value precise to a day with supporting like greater than, less than, equal to.
So that's not what this fire specs is though, right? It allows partial.
Yes, that's why there's a constraint there.
Because I was just thinking of that as a mitigation for not doing comparators, because it's Indigenous and so forth. If you just have a year, I think that's a pretty common kind of usage.
Marvin. Oh, sorry.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think I was just thinking about this. Our Communicare system often will just have a month and a year for somebody's birthday, or sometimes just a year.
True. Again, like, yes, noting the search parameter is a search parameter. It doesn't have to match the exact of what's in there. So if you're finding by month, yeah, you can support that in a couple of ways.
Not based on how this is described.
No, exactly. That's vote versus search versus what's actually in the profile. I don't think the profile requires day. So that's one of the differences between the thing that is stored versus how you're choosing to support searching.
I think our profile is saying you have to store a day, but this search is saying that we also have to search by day.
Let's have a look. And while I look for that, Millie, you've got your hand up.
Just confirming what you said before, yes, from my engineering team, we currently have EQ, LT, etc. implemented, and I believe that was fairly easy to do. I believe Landon did that. The team is concerned about fuzzy date search, as they call it, so being able to search just year and month, etc. We currently do either year, month, day, or a full date and time. And even that, there's been some interesting, we did some QA last week, and there was some interesting anomalies with the combination of like year, month, day, and the modifiers greater than, etc. So it all seems a little bit complex to implement, but certainly my engineering team said that the modifiers are easier to do than the fuzzy dates. So if we do need to support some way of searching a range instead of exact date, this would be the preferred one from my engineering.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. I think that if a system implements something like Communicare, where they can turn that into a greater than, less than query with a precision of day. So I think that's the least evil.
So just to, and also confirm, I've looked it up. Birth date does not require in the profile a day. Like, you can just have a year. There are no precision requirements on the content. So a patient's birth date may just be a year at minimum, given the fire requirements on date. So it might be a year, it might be a year and a month, or a year, a month and a day is what might be filling that out. And I would agree, from my understanding, from out of the box on a fire server, supporting just searching for a year without using greater than, less than, greater than equivalent, and less than an equivalent is, I think, going to be a lot harder than implementing fuzzy searches using this particular technique.
I don't think they're particularly fuzzy. They're just ranged searches. It's just you're searching for a year range or a.
Well, if you just put in a year, is that pulling back every single? Are you expecting it to return everyone whose birth date is in that year? Is that what you're expecting it to search by, or
Yes.
only the birth dates for which you only know a year?
No. It will be everyone in that year range. It's an intersection.
And that's not how the fire search, I believe, works. It does string equivalent without greater than, less than, or equal to. Do you reckon?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a range.
Yeah.
There's a whole page on this topic.
Yeah.
I put it
Where
in
is it?
So it's the same at the month level as well. So you can search at a month
Yep,
level.
as specified. Yep.
Effectively, if you provide something like a date, a year, you're effectively implementing a greater than the 1st of January on that year to the 31st of December that year. So I think by what we've actually currently got kind of makes it explicit that you have to do the heavy lifting, not the server. as in you, as in the requester, has to do the heavy lifting, not the server. And I think Millie is along the same lines as what I'm thinking, and that's a hell of a lot easier to implement from a responder's perspective.
Okay. David, I think your hand is up first.
Yeah, I was just wondering about sort of any possible privacy issues. I mean, maybe this isn't really relevant, but if
think for this-
research is returning a huge number of results, like I'm just sort of trying to work out what the use case is where you don't know the patient's birth date. Do you know what I mean?
I think we had some people from supporting in the Indigenous communities from in our last call that were making clear that that is something where a precise birth date is not often known,
Sure,
and
but
that it's important for their systems to be able to support that use case.
It's
There's
very
also population health at these cases as well. So you're looking for people in a particular age group. So,
oh yeah, right. Oh yeah.
yeah. And that's effective. This is a parameter sitting by itself. It's not a combinatorial parameter. So this is purely give me all patients with this date of birth in this range. We went down that route.
And Kathleen, I think you're up next.
Yeah, sure. So just a couple of things. It wouldn't be just Indigenous, it would also be your refugees that have immigrated. A lot of them don't know when they're born, and they might just have a guesstimate, and some hospitals will actually put, when you don't know, it's the 15th of June of that year. Like they'll have, or it might be the 1st of January. So they'll have some parameters around how they register them and all those sorts of things. But the other thing is I was just trying to understand, would you be searching just by birth date, or would you be searching by birth date and a surname or something else? Like is the chances that you're searching just by birth date would be very limited, I would think. And the other thing is in relation to privacy, and I can't remember who raised that about the privacy. If you're doing your normal work and you do a search and you bring back multiple people, there's no breach in that as long as you're only looking at the one that you're meant to be looking at. So that should be okay.
I guess to address the question you asked, we're not really dealing with a specific use case here. We're talking about any requirements AUCDI imposes on the technical implementation of just the birth date search parameter, not I guess addressing a particular combination or a use case for something like patient matching at this stage, which you're right, would totally have a set of combinatory values in order to meet. Millie?
Just a heads up, we've probably only got a few more minutes left on this one if we want to have a few more comments and maybe try to get to a motion. Millie, go ahead.
I'll be quick then. I remember last time we were talking about this on privacy, someone made a good point about, if you allow greater than for birthdays, then someone could do, greater than 1st January 1800 and get every patient. The thought I had since, and I wanted to check, if a responder has concerns about allowing that kind of functionality, is there provision within the fire spec to, say, apply security restrictions that would then trump this requirement?
Yes. This is more about this doesn't override any of your sharing requirements. So they can formulate a request. Basically, we're saying that when a requester formulates a request, you must provide precise to the day, and that they can use greater than, less than, equal to, etc. What gets sent back is subject to all the privacy rules in the system. It's not just a free-for-all, regardless of that. It's more, these are the requirements on how do you formulate a request and which particular comparators a server has to be able to support. That's what AUCDI is doing. and no more than that. I see we've got Brett and then Roma, and then we'll try and see if we've actually got a position on if we believe this is shall, should, or may. So Brett?
Yeah, I just on that privacy thing, like I think APIs operate in some authorization context, right? So you'll get access to whatever you're allowed to get access to. That might even go down to the level of it's a patient accessing their own record and the only thing they can see is themselves, right? So that's a possibility. So so you just there's an assumption that everything is under some authorization level, which might be everything, but might not be everything.
Thanks, Brett. Roma?
Possibly a stupid question, but what other things are supported? Because presumably to give a decent range, you also need logical operators and possibly other things. I just kind of feel like I missed something. Sorry.
Supported for
And I
birthday?
think what we're talking about here, it's not clear, I don't think, to the audience if I'm interpreting that question, and I've heard a couple of times. This one that we're looking at is a query by date only. Okay, so these are singular search parameters executed independently of each other. We're not assuming what we actually really implement is the combinatorial. You're saying you may support a birth date only search. And then on the right-hand side, you can see in this view better, there are then combinatorial ones that you should support, including birth date plus family, birth date plus name. All right, so the one that we've been talking about is a birth date parameter with no other parameters. So it's literally is a population query.
And it is, however, saying that when you implement birth date, these are your requirements on birth date. So that does mean the rules on GT, LE, and so forth would apply on the combinational as well. It's about what are the rules on that particular search parameter, birth date.
So we do inherit those, do we?
But can you do birth date plus birth date? Like if I want to do less than 2009, but greater than 2008 to find someone born in 2008, you need the and there. The less than alone doesn't do it.
Correct.
Unless we have a between, but I didn't see that.
It's not probably rendered, but it is in the computable form. So there is something in FAR called, what is it called?
Multiple
looking for that.
Multiple and multiple or. So
we don't. I'll just like A, yes, there is. But B, AU Core is silent on whether or not, like it's up to you. You can do it according to the fire spec. At this stage, we do not require support for it in AU Core on birth date.
This less than's a bit useless without having one-sided bounds. If you want to also then have don't give me basically half the population queries and one-sided bounds, possibly doesn't work. We'll end up always violating like milli security requirements.
Well, you're still operating within an authorized context, so you're only going to be getting or exposing the things that you're allowed to. But if you, so that I guess that's two things. So one is the greater, do we support comparators greater than, less than? And the other one is, do we support multiple or do we support multiple and? So you can search for this birth date or that birth date. Or in the case that you were putting forward is, I want to be able to send two birth dates so I can go greater than this and less than that. That would be an additional kind of thing beyond what we're talking about. At the moment, we're just talking about singular for birth date. If it's of interest, and I'll just go, how many people on the line? Like maybe let's just put our hands up for that. So anyone who's got their hand up, if you could just drop it briefly. is anyone on the line interested in birth date in supporting multiple and, as in the ability to go greater than this and less than that? Righto. So that's enough people that suggest to me that in fact that this is still a half-formed position, and we need to bring in the support potentially for multiple and for this. So given our time boxing, and I've just gone over, can I take that away? I'll write up something and I'll send that out to the group. We've got 2 weeks to just go, here's something we could do, and then we can come back in our next one in a fortnight. We can talk about the support for these comparators, but also the support for multiple and then, if that works for people. And Heath, I guess final comment on that before we move on to the next topic.
Sorry, I didn't put my hand down from the.
Oh, okay. All right, so let's hold this over. So now we're going to talk about in the fortnight the greater than, less than equal to, etc. But we're also going to bring in the multiple and conversation. All right, awesome. Okay, let's talk about AU Core. Now this one should be a bit quick, and this should be a bit quick because this is very similar to what we've already agreed on in our last technical, actually our second to last technical design group, because I was away on the last one. And in AU Core Encounter, we went through ballot in identifying the things we didn't want to be supported in AU Core R1. And we ended up removing the support for Encounter Identifier. Now, when we made that change, we didn't explicitly say to remove support for the identifier search parameter. But since we are no longer in AU Core say that Encounter Identifier should be supported, I believe we really should be removing any requirements around support for that particular parameter. So if I just go to what this looks like now, what we used to have down here is a may, and we said you may support Encounter Identifier as a search parameter. Our mays were things that we wanted to highlight to people that were relevant, and all these correspond to things that have must support on them. But since we've taken it off for identifier, I'm proposing that this is no longer something we really want to highlight to people in R1, and we should in fact be removing that mention. Any questions on that? It's looking like no, so I would like to propose that we remove support for searching by identifier for encounters in AU Core R1.
I'll second.
Okay.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Was that your call?
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you, Heath. In that case, we can put up a vote, please, Brad. Okay, I'll give it another 10 seconds. Great, looks like it's pretty static there. So we'll end a poll. So we had 34 participants. Brett was a +1, so that leaves 19 affirmative. We have 1 negative and we have 15 abstains. The motion has passed.
Okay, thanks, Landon. Next one. All right. FMM1. So we had a conversation about all the artifacts in AU Core last fortnight. We didn't end up talking about AU Core sex assigned at birth specifically. So let's raise that. Also just reconfirming for people that we, out of our last technical design group where the AU Core TDG us said, yes, these things can go to FMM1. And I submitted that to the firework group. who ratified our decision and have endorsed that, which is helpful. So just this last one, and I'll walk through this one now, is the AU Core sex assigned at birth profile. For those people who've joined us maybe later this year, one of our AUCDI elements is sex at birth, and that equivalent is a AU Core sex assigned at birth profile in AU Core. That's what it looks like now. We had a few meetings earlier this year in February, and we discussed and voted on this profile where we are profiling the gender harmony extension, where we set the type of recorded sex or gender as sex at birth, and we have a biological sex value. We've got our usual must supports and obligations on it. That's been through our AU Core March ballot for comment, and our QA report for that shows 0 errors, 0 warnings. So on that basis, that's brought to us to just reaffirm that this is moving out of the draft 0 stage and into the FMM1, where we now need to start testing it and take it through to the end of year ballot. So that's the proposal. I'll just open that up for comment before I motion that we mark this as FMM1. All right, that's looking like no comments so far. So I motion that we mark this profile as FMM1. Would someone like to second?
I'll second it, Marvin.
Thanks,
Thank
Marvin.
you, Marvin. Okay, great. Can we put forward a vote, please, Brett, for this one? Great. Please enter your votes. We'll give it another 10 seconds. Okay, it looks pretty static there. So I will end the poll. I'll share the results. So we have 36 participants, plus Brett, we have 20 affirmative, we have 0 negative, and we have 17 abstain. So that motion has passed.
Awesome. I'll take the opportunity, just in case from abstain, you were like, what is this FMM business? And I'll just make a quick comment here. So FMM levels, you'll see them on the HL7AU structures, be they profiles or terminology, whether they're an AU base or AU core, and they range from 0 up to like normative, or 0 to 5 and then normative. And 0 essentially means this is a really early thing. We're still working through it. We're not sure what's going on yet. It's very much a thing in progress and exploration. FMM1 says this is a line in the sand, really, that the technical design group is going to work from now. We think this is a position. Like in this case, we've agreed this is what sex at birth looks like. And FMM1 is really that first step to go, look, the structure itself we've created has no errors and warnings according to IG Publisher, so it's technically sound, and the work group goes, this is enough for us that we want to start refining and testing. And that maturity level, the FMM levels as you go on, give the community and implementers an idea of where it is in the standards process on how subject it is to change, how much agreement is around there. So this is, I guess, the first step from going, it's a draft, we're not at all sure what's going on, to FMM1, we've got a line in the sand, and we're going to take this to ballot at the end of the year, and we're also going to be testing it through AU Core testing, and we'll keep maturing. But if you've got any more comments about FMM levels at any time, let me know, drop them in Zulip, like chat.fire.org, or at any of our other conversations we'll have about FMMs. Okay, where are we for time, Landon? Sorry, I don't have your time on me. How far do we have before we stop?
We probably have another 20-25 minutes if we do a quick outro.
Okay, cool. So next up, okay, so after our focus on ballot reconciliation, which we've basically really done ballot reconciliation, was getting ready for that was from the ballot for comments, and we've got a really good draft now for AU Core to take into as a standard for a working kind of standard later this year. What we're doing now is getting ready to go to that ballot. And one of the things we need to do to get ready for that is look at AUCDI R1. Now, when we looked at this earlier, we were operating off the AUCDI R1 draft for comment that came out and what those elements were. Hopefully you're all aware, AUCDI has now been officially published. I think it was just this week, like a couple of days ago. And what's in there are some new elements. So they weren't in the draft for comment, and where we've also done our mappings. And just for those people, actually, I'll just go to AU Core. For those of you who are again kind of new, you've joined us a bit later than everybody else. In our AU Core implementation guide, we have a mapping section here where the intention is that we say how each AUCDI data group and data element is supported in FHIR. Where does that go? Which profile does it correspond to? And as you can see here with some TBDs, AUCDI has introduced a number of elements. So that's one of the things we need to look at in between our ballot for comment that we did and reconciled, and before we go to real ballot in August, is look at those new AUCDI elements. And so I'm going to talk about some of that today. I don't think we have enough time to do all of it, given where we're at, but let's start the conversation and see where we get to. So let me just come back to this and move down. So rephrasing for people. Okay, here's the new elements. And what I've done is I've grayed out the data groups that don't have any new elements in them. So procedure completed, vaccination administered, and encounter clinical context have no changes between the for comment and R1 for AUCDI. So don't need to worry about those. What's come into the other data groups are date time elements. So in problem diagnosis, there's been a last updated added. In adverse reaction risk summary, they've also got last updated. In medication use statement, date of assertion has been added. In sex and gender summary, last updated. Tobacco smoking summary, we've got last updated. And then what we've got for biomarkers, so which is, your lipids and your HbA1c, and in your measurements and vital signs, each of these has either date time of measurement or date time of observation added. So you'll get blood pressure has a date time of measurement, and pulse has date time of observation, and body temperature has date time of, I think it's measurement. And I want to go through now and talk about those with you. So here's really our three groups of items. We've got date of assertion, that stands alone, and that's for medication use statement. Then we've got date time of measurement and date time of observation, and I want to deal with those together. And then we've got last updated. Again, that goes across things like all your summaries, problem diagnosis, adverse reaction risk, and so forth. And I want to deal with those together. We're probably only going to get to max the first two today. We'll see how we go. And the first one I think should be easy because we have said that medication use statement is R2 of AU Core. That was a decision we made in March that this was something that we wouldn't be able to achieve in R1. And I just want to confirm for the group that we are therefore, I think, going to include working with that new element in R2. So when we work on a UCOR medication statement, that's where we're going to work on this new element and anything else that comes in from AUCDI. I just want to stop here and ask, are there any objections to that approach? If there are, pop your hand up on just saying we're going to work with the new element for medication use statement when we work with all of that, which is R2 for us. Okay, great. No objections to that. Let's note that in the minutes. Okay, let's get to our next one. So date, time of measurement and date, time of observation. This is across what AUCDI calls biomarkers and measurements and vital signs. So here is what I think that looks like in terms of our AUCDI mapping to AUCORE. I showed you that mapping table. I think, honestly, for all of these, where we've already got profiles that represent these will be mapped to observation effective date time, and I'll walk you through why I think that is. And I'll just say to Kimberly, who's posted in the chat, where's it captured which parts of AUCDI IR1 are in AUCORE versus later releases? On that mapping table, where it lists all the, in AUCORE, all the different elements of AUCDI, it talks about where they're supported now or where it's going to be in a future release. So it's all on that one page, which talks about the relationship from AUCDI to AUCORE in that FIRE IG. And we absolutely need to keep that up to date and clear on what the support is. So I'm just going to self-congratulate all of us. Well done, everybody. We already support this. So the AUCDI element, date, time of measurement, date, time of observation, we already support those in our AUCORE R1 profiles. And by that, I mean, there is a must support and obligation on observation effective date time for these profiles. So this is already there. The change we would be making is to explicitly agree on what the mapping is and to update our page on how AUCORE relates to AUCDI. I think that's what we need to do. So let's go through that a little bit more. Here are the excerpts from AUCDI. So date, time of measurement. Definition of that is the date and time when the observation was measured. So, as in the date and time when HbA1c was measured, the date and time when blood pressure was measured. Oh, Ken, you've popped your hand up.
I'm not sure whether it's a terminology thing, but with A1C, there are three particular times. Well, there's many times, which we'll have in the tracking of reports in the end. Is the date of the request. The patient may present a week later, which is the date of collection, and the analysis may be, which is the date of measurement in our parlance, it may be a day after that. So the date of analysis is, now typically, Medicare is interested in the date of the request, so we'll put that aside. But the date of collection is actually the date of the observation, not the date of the measurement. So, and that is the date that's typically assigned to pathology reports, the date of collection rather than the date of measurement. And so the terminology is a bit, ambiguous because it implies that it was a day of analysis rather than a date of collection.
Yes. Yeah, I agree with that, with all your comments. And Brett, are you adding further to what Ken said, or is it a different comment?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I was going to add to that. Yeah, so it was more. I think the definition in the FIRE effective date time covers that explicitly. So yeah, it is meant to indicate when the observation is clinically relevant. So in that case, it's collection. Yep.
Thanks.
Yes, absolutely. Just to confirm what Brett had said, in the profile that this is mapped to, the effective date time is the clinically relevant date. And for HbA1c, that is indeed expected to be collection time. Richard?
So this seems to be a problem with the AUCDI, that either they've asked for something which isn't what's typically recorded, or they haven't made clear that they want something that is different to what they describe. What process do we do with that sort of thing?
So in that typically, and I realise that some of these dates have come in to a degree post the comment review period. The review and interaction with AUCDI is intended to be within the AUCDI like review mechanisms of that coming out for vote and responding to that. When in this case we have this kind of thing and we comment on that, I think that we should also be coming and providing feedback through to the clinical design group. And I would like to start doing that by actually doing a reporting back in each of the clinical design group meetings on how these elements have landed in AU Core and where, if any, there are mismatches and where there are really good lineups. I think that's something that we could start doing, and I'd be really keen to do that.
So in this one, it'd be a case of saying back to them, thank you for asking the HbA1c measurement date. We won't be supplying that. We'll be supplying the HbA1c testing, not testing date, but sort of collection date or effective date. Would you like to change your specification? Do you want us to actually record this strange thing you're asking for? If so, we'll have a conversation.
Yeah, I think that sounds good.
Brett, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I just think there is a lot of prior on observation and how these elements are used. So I think we should refer to some of that. And there's pretty well established usage for, especially for pathology. So I think it's I think it is a problem with the clarity of the language in AUCDI. So I think they need some pointing.
Yeah, it's a shame it's slipped through. The I think the vital signs is okay. It's definitely the biomarkers that have got a terminological issue here. So they're probably trying to be consistent in their language, but unfortunately it's confused us. So I don't think we need to spend much more time here other than the fact that somehow this group needs to feed that information back or that feedback back.
Yeah, and I'd like to, I guess, I'll talk to the AUCDI authors to make sure they're comfortable with that. But I think it would be really good for us to start reporting back to the clinical design group as a standing like 10, 15 minutes to talk about how we're mapping these in and where we are and where we think there might be maybe some of the semantic mismatches. I don't know, is that, like, am I off the mark here? Do people think, yes, that's a good idea? Or is there an alternative kind of approach people think that we might be able to take?
It's unfortunate it's got to this point, but I think having someone like Ken come from a clinical perspective back, yes, it's great that we respond, but I think Ken's position would take probably more stance than maybe us. I think it would be well understood, but I guess I'm encouraging Ken to provide feedback, even though it's a bit late in the game. But yeah.
So what I might do is combine those two approaches, because I think this is as we go a bit further, we probably still need to discuss this in our next TDG, because we're coming up to time. I might talk to Ken if you're amenable to it, and we might do a bit of a report back together to the clinical design group on how this needs to relate to things like HbA1c.
Yeah, just a quick, with the core requirements for those observations, it was specifically so cardiovascular risk could be calculated, and because blood pressure and cholesterol level, everything may be done on different days. It sort of relates to the discussion before. It may be the the latest common date of those observations, which determines the date of the cardiovascular risk assessment. And that doesn't, and so that's so loose that it may not matter whether there's a week or two between the observations if we focus that these observations in AUCDI core are really for the purpose of risk assessment rather than for the purpose of reporting pathology. So there's some issues, but I'm available for sure.
Okay, great. I mean, therefore, I'll touch base with you, Ken, after this. And let me just check in with time. Okay, 12:13. I'm just going to phrase this, and we'll actually end up carrying this conversation and clearly the next one over to our next meeting. So we'll keep going with the AUCDI elements on our next fortnight, but let's just go. I'll just do a quick run through of what I think we can talk about then. So here are the AUCDI definitions of these, date and time. And so that applies across all of the biomarkers, all of the measurements of vital signs. I also wanted to call out for folks, I know it says date and time, but the data type is date time, and their examples explicitly include just a date as well as a date and time. So it isn't requiring both precision up to a time here. So don't, get lost in that detail. So again, this is me just walking through that. I think the answer is observation effective date time for all our profiles. We've already mapped for our different biomarkers, our measurements and vitals. We've already got that supported in our profiles, which ends up looking really like this. So I think that is where this is mapped to. And that is going to be my proposal for this group. I just want to check here on if we feel there is more discussion that we want to have on this topic in more detail in our next technical design group meeting, or are we actually comfortable at this level of detail for those biomarkers and those vitals that it is represented by that effective date time in our profiles? And that we're reporting back then to the clinical design group, any of those things where we need to talk about what might look like somewhat of a semantic mismatch, but it's really around usage.
Yeah, I would like to motion we accept these mappings and report them back to the CDG.
I second.
Okay, but I know, Andy, you have your hand up? No, it's down. Okay, so if Brett's motion,
No, I did have my hand up.
Oh no, sorry.
Sorry, I did have my hand up. I'm not convinced that it's an appropriate mapping. While I agree that the definition of effective time within the fire resource does indicate that it's often the date and time of measurement, it's not restricted to that. And I worry that the range of use cases that we may seek to support will actually go outside that mapping. So for effective daytime, this observation should be regarded as effective over this period of time. Whether that is actually bound to its point of creation, I don't think that was ever the intent. Otherwise, the fire resource, I think, would have gone with a different definition of effective. So I think it's overlaying semantics, which is convenient but not actually prescribed.
I will call out here, we've got two kinds of things then. We've got the profiles that are the vitals, and they have stated that the definition of effective date time here is the date the observation was made. So the time at which the date you did the heart rate. On the pathology ones, they are all in reference of what Ken was talking about. They're all collection date time. So the clinically relevant date time for pathology is all taken at specimen collection. So that is the semantic difference between the two. I'm pretty comfortable with this, with the pretty much the exact semantic match for the vitals and measures. I think our difference is in what we were talking about in the pathology ones. Oops.
I think for these specific profiles, this is well understood, because the observations are a point in time and the pathology is a collection, because that's when the values are understood to have existed.
And possibly further on that, David?
Yeah, look, I don't think it is merely a semantic thing, because I think the problem is that unless it's quite clear what it is that's being implemented, the risk is then that the incorrect data gets sort of put into the system that gets developed, if that makes sense. And just to back up what Ken said, there's lots of different time observations, and depending on exactly what the question is that, you know, the person who's looking at information is trying to answer, any of them might be relevant. So yes, it probably is most likely that we care about what the time of specimen collection is from a clinical sense, but we might also want to know how long it took between when the specimen was collected and when the analysis was done on the machine, and then further, you know, how long it took for someone to investigate that and write a report. So there's reasons why you might need to know all of these different times. And as I said, depending on exactly what the question is that you're trying to get at, you might need all of them.
So I'll suggest, okay, so I'll say two things to that. That suggests, we are running out of time now, so let's hold over the pathology ones to the next meeting. It is very clearly in AU Core, time of specimen collection, and no other is what's mapped there. And oops, looks like my computer's going to die soon from battery. Are we comfortable then, like in taking a block vote, if we remove the pathology, that for the vitals and measures around blood pressure, heart rate, body temperature, respiration rate, are we happy to motion for that mapping?
Only if you restrict the definition of effective date time, or the observation dot effective time in the definition, because this then takes it out of play. We can't say things like this observation should only be regarded as accurate for this period of time.
Correct. It's not allowed to be a period. It isn't anyway. These are all date times. It's not allowed in the current profile. These are date times. That's what's set in the fire standard. They're not periods. So I think that matches.
Well, in the fire standard, it's a period. It can be a period.
And in AU Core, no, it's not, because these are, the fire standard defines what blood temperature, pulse rate, all of those must only have as effective date time, as in my mapping to them. So date time of measurement is to the date time in the profile. You're not allowed a period.
Because we're inheriting the HL7 profile for heart rate, Andy.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So if we...
Did you motion that, Daniel?
Yeah, if you're happy to motion. So we're, just to confirm, we're removing we're going to kick over the pathology kind of conversation and pick that up in our next fortnight meeting. And let's come back to then the vitals and measures, which is just the date time, which is that semantic match for those ones. I'm just confirming, Brett, you're happy to motion, and Heath, you're seconding on this?
Yeah, I'm happy with the amendment.
That's
Second, the amended motion.
Okay. If there are no questions on just these parts, noting again, we're going to keep the pathology for our next fortnightly to go through some more details on that and how we might need to work through it. Then I think we can go to a vote.
Andy's got his hand up. I was just wondering if he had a question in relation to this, or that's just hand up from before.
It's
Nope,
live.
hand up from before. Awesome. Let's go to a vote. Okay, the results are filtering in. We'll give it another 10 seconds. Okay, great. It's looking pretty stable now. So we have 32 participants, including Brett. We have 17 affirmative, we have 1 negative, and we have 15 abstains. The motion has passed. Heath, I see you have your hand up.
Fine. Finish your process.
Okay. I'll go ahead when motion has passed. Go ahead.
Okay. I was just going to make a suggestion that when we go back to the CDG, we go back with basically an assumption that what they mean by date of measurement is the date of collection or specimen collection. Yeah, that sort of saying that we've looked at trying to map this, and we think that you mean equivalent to effective time, which in our terms means that you think that it is a specimen collection time, not measurement time. Would you be intending to do that before it comes back to this group, or you want to come back to this group before we go back to the CDG, Danielle? I think Danielle's gone.
I think Danielle's gone. We'll take that as an action to get back to Danielle.
Yeah.
I might just see if I can take over and just close out. Can everyone see my screen?
No.
No.
I can see your screen. I see
Yes.
e-vote update is what I see.
Yep.
Perfect. We only have 5 minutes to go. I'll do a super quick update. In the previous technical design group, we went through the allergy intolerance guidance clarification. And what we did, we actually put a motion to maintain the current guidance and move this for future consideration. But what happened was that was a procedural mistake because we didn't vote on the previously agreed disposition, and we missed the requirement to revisit a decision. So what we have done is to resolve this issue and to complete the ballot resolution, we have put forward an e-vote, and we have submitted that last week, and this e-vote actually closes today. And what we have in this e-vote, 2 options. One is to just provide some clarity around the missing data, because I think the previous clarification was quite unclear, and it's just some basic guidance to clarify that. And the second one is fundamentally the motion that we passed last week. Should we revisit the disposition, just including that one that we missed? And should we change the disposition to consider for future use? And the vote closes today. So if you haven't yet, feel free to jump on. I think I sent out an email yesterday indicating that this vote was closing. Got 3 minutes. So where are we now? So we are now here, very close to the next ballot. And the snapshot for the ballot will be on the 5th of August. So I think we just have a few remaining things to get ready for that one. So the open to-dos through the 25th of July, we have AUCDI element reconciliation. And we have some change requests, and I think Danielle's offline, but I think what she wanted was for people to highlight their priority of change requests as well, because there's a bit of limited time that we have left to get through. So if you do have a preference on things that you would like to address, we'll try to address those first. If you let us know in chat.fire or email us directly. And the next meeting, we'll go over the allergy and tolerance voting, to the usual updates. We'll probably revisit the section that Danielle has just gone through, and we'll probably go through those change requests if there's any ones that people have highlighted that they desperately, well, they would like to go through. And I think, actually, we finished 2 minutes early. So thank you, everyone. I think
Thanks,
we'll
Landon.
call the meeting there.
Thanks, Landon.
Thank you, Landon.
Thank you.
Bye all.
Landon.
Bye.
Landon.